Then my other big thing was I must have carpet. I don't want wood flooring, because I had done a stint at Fortnum and Mason a few years prior, done like a short working period with them. And I learned about the history of the company. And I came to understand how branding worked and all of that. And when you walk into Fortnum and Mason's, they engage your five senses. So the sense of touch is felt from feet, because you feel the soft plush carpet. There is the smell of biscuits and tea and everything in the air. There is the sight of the brightly colored tins and all of that. And they've of course got the music playing and the milling around and all that. And you can practically taste all of the stuff, the goodness that's there. So I thought, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I must have a carpet. And everyone kept saying, it doesn't make sense. No one has carpets in a retail store. And I thought, no, I wanted to, because I also wanted to recreate the feeling of being in the womb, like walking in and just feeling that you've come away from the noise of the King's Road and the busyness of the high street, and you've come into this serene, calm space. And that is exactly the atmosphere that I was able to create. And when people come in, even now, they say, it's so relaxing in here. And I love to hear that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just what you said about Fortnum and Mason, triggering the five senses. Never thought of that, but that's, very, very interesting. Good marketing ploy. Yeah. So since 2016, when you opened the store up until now, have you used any other sources of funding to keep the business going, or how has that journey been? Because we had the pandemic as well.
Pandemic, yeah. So just the government gave out loans, the business loans and support over the pandemic, and I took every single one of them. But that's pretty much been it. I haven't taken anything else besides that. Just, I guess, again, maybe because of my history of having lost everything, the feeling of, not knowing what's around the corner and all of that has affected me in some ways. However, in saying that, I am definitely looking to expand way beyond where we are, and I'm having to look externally now. So I'm on that journey now. I'm finally on that journey of raising funding.
Oh, okay. And if you don't mind saying, what types of funding are you looking for?
I'm looking at both options, either grants I'm definitely looking at, but because that's not guaranteed, my third option is investment. It's not my first choice, but that would be my third option, my third choice. And then probably going to just look at raising a loan instead.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because I'm very confident in the direction that the business is going, and I'm very confident that we can actually scale and grow beyond where we are to, great numbers. So my hope is that I'm able to stay focused and get that done and not be distracted along the way.
Sure. And so what would you say is the biggest financial business learning you've made, or mistake or learning that you've made since 2008, since you started the company?
Pricing. So my mistake as well, which I had to learn, as well as many, many business owners, especially when it comes to products, because in fact, I think across the board, even with services as well. So I'll talk about products because that's where I'm an expert at. People, when you start a business, you think to yourself, like with a baby cut shop, all I was thinking of was business to consumer, B2C. I wasn't thinking that one day I might want to sell to business owners. And so in a case like that, the pricing, when you start, a lot of times is conducive for the consumer market, and that's okay. But if things change or you start to see opportunities to sell to businesses, it becomes difficult because there is no margin for you there. Like, what are you going to then do? Are you going to split the margin, the profit between you and the other business? And it's not worth it. I had a gentleman call me at the shop because we get a lot of companies who approach us and ask if we will sell their products, and new manufacturers and so on. And I once upon a time, it was yes to everyone, mainly because I'm a recovered people pleaser and I struggle to say no. But also, it was because I knew what it felt like when I was turned down, when I was going around asking, can I sell your products? And people say no. So because of that, I felt then that my job was to show, and I want everyone who crosses my path to be blessed, every single person. And so I thought that a way to bless them would be to say yes and make them feel better. But you see, by doing that, all I was doing was putting salve on their emotions, but robbing them of the opportunity to learn. So I had a gentleman approach me, and he had, I don't even remember what it was, but he sold some items for £10. He said the RRP was £10 and he would love me to sell them. And I said, you know what, it's not really something that I would sell, because number one, I'm paying rent. So every square foot of that shop is very expensive, and there is nothing that's worth £10 that's going to pay the rent. Like it just doesn't exist. That's number one. The second reason is that the amount of work required to sell an item for £10, I would much rather put that work towards selling an item for £100, which is about the same time it would take anyway, and get a bigger profit. And the final reason I gave him, so he's new. When you're a new business and you're not VAT registered, whatever you sell, so if you buy something for £5 and you sell it for £10, you've made a £5 profit and you keep all the profit. But if you're VAT registered, which you should be, hopefully, as you grow, and I say you should be because that is the trajectory of growth. You get to a threshold, you should grow to a point, aim to get to a point where you start paying VAT. I'm charging and paying VAT. And so if he sells it to me for £5 and I sell it on for £10, I've made £5 profit. And I keep doing that. And then pretty soon I've hit the VAT threshold, which is, I think, just under £100,000 per annum. I've hit the VAT threshold, and I now have to take 20% of that and give it to the government. What would have been wiser would have been to think ahead of time that one day I am going to be VAT registered. I better put the 20% in now so I wouldn't have to raise my prices further down the line. Because what's going to happen is you're used to taking £5 and suddenly it jumps to £3, and suddenly it goes from £5 to £3. And so that's one area people struggle with a lot, is in the pricing, is not thinking ahead. What happens when I become VAT registered, and then what if this product I'm selling becomes so popular that other businesses also want to sell them, and I need to sell it to them. How much am I going to sell it to them for? I can't take something that I'm buying for £5 and sell it to you for, how much am I going to sell it to you for? Like, what would you? So pricing, I think, is the biggest area that small businesses, at least the ones I've come across, tend to make a mistake in, because there's just not enough on there. And then we have talked about overheads. In my case, where I've got a shop and I've got staffing and all of that, that's, so there is a lot, there's a lot of calculation that needs to go into the pricing, especially where retail is concerned.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a very good lesson on the pricing and factoring in that VAT as well. So I know that's a good lesson that you've learned also. And thanks for sharing that too. So Toks, thanks very much for your time. I know it's the end of, a long week, a long day, but just before we go, please let people know where they can find you online and in store as well.
Oh, thank you so much. So the babycutshop.com is the website, and our social media handles are at the Baby Cut Shop.
Great. So I'm sure people will check you out and also have a look at, I'm sure people are going to have to just see what these 10 grand nurseries look like. So I'm sure people will be on your Instagram and at your website as well.